My sister is possessed by the devil. Or at least that's what I thought when I was like 10. Let me step things back just a little bit. Strap yourselves in. Story time. When I was 10 years old, or thereabouts, I watched The Exorcist for the first time.
Your mother sucks cocks in hell.
I knew nothing about the movie. I was 10. I didn't even know what my feelings were at that point. All I knew was that it was some sort of like scary, terrifying movie that everyone was talking about. Now, being 10 years old, I wasn't supposed to be watching that. No one should have allowed me to watch that movie. But my sister thought, hey, that might be fun. She brought the movie home on a VHS back in the day when we all had tape players. Some of you don't even know what that is, alright? Try to keep up with this old man. She brought this movie home from school, said it was the most scary movie of all time, and everyone was terrified of it. And I was like, ooh, I'm a big boy. I'm 10. I can watch anything. Give it to me. Give me hard drugs as well. I can handle it. Oh no. Sweet baby summer child. You couldn't even handle dinner at that age. She said she was going to watch the movie that night. And I was like, cool, I'll watch it with you. That'll be awesome. It'll be a great bonding sesh for the lads. But she went away and hung out with her friends that afternoon. And the tape was just sitting there, lying in her room on top of the VHS player. And I just couldn't help myself. I had to watch. Stuck the tape in. Had to rewind it, of course, because you had to back then. Everyone forgot to do that after they watched movies. And I started to just digest the movie. It was going along. Had no idea what to expect. I wish I could go back to those simpler times.
You're gonna die up there.
If you've never seen The Exorcist, nowadays it's probably quite dated. There's a lot of stuff in it that probably looks a little goofy, but I was convinced that I was watching a documentary of a girl who got possessed and starts swearing at priests. And you also have to remember that at 10 years of age in Ireland, it was extremely Catholic. Back in, what age was I when in 2000, the year 2000, I was 10 years old. Holy mother of God, the year 2000 is 20 years ago. Oh. What a projectile vomit like they did in the movie. So I was doubly heightened to be afraid of the devil. I didn't want the devil in my house. I didn't want him near me. Just didn't really want to hang out with him. You know, it's just not something I really wanted in my childhood. And I can't remember how far into the movie I got, but I stopped. I could not watch the entire thing. I think I stopped like halfway. I don't even know what happened at that point. I had to. I was so scared. I kept looking over my shoulder constantly. I wasn't following the narrative. I was looking at some of it through my hands. It was terrifying.
Fuck me! Fuck me! Fuck me!
But I hadn't told anyone in my house that I had watched the tape. I didn't even tell my sister at that time. I just turned it off. I went about my day. I went out and, I don't know, mused over life, probably sat in my pile of sand and was just like, what's happening? But that night is when stuff really kicked off. I like I said, I didn't tell anyone I watched it. I just went to bed. I could barely sleep anyway because the memories of this girl with a crucifix stabbing herself in areas that I didn't even know what that did yet were haunting my brain. That's when my sister started to talk in her sleep. Now, I should rewind this back a little bit further and give you context to tell you that before I watched the movie, my sister had only told me that it was a girl who finds a Ouija board and summons the devil. And my sister had told me in that moment that she and her friends had also tried to do that a couple of weeks prior. And my sister and I shared the same room. She was in the bunk below me and I was above her on the top bunk. And as soon as she started to speak in her sleep, I was convinced she was talking in tongues. I bolted my eyes open, sat upright, and never felt the fear of Satan more than I did in that moment. I was convinced the devil had entered my sister's body. The Ouija board that she had messed with her friends had become a conduit, and now Satan was in my house sharing a bunk bed with me.
You have summoned the Prince of Temptation. For what purpose?
Oh, shit.
She just kept talking in tongues. I don't know, trying to summon some demons into the house to kill me. I was sitting there panicking, heart rate elevated, sweat coming down off my face. So what did I do to combat this? Like any kid would do at 10 years old in Ireland. I started to pray. I started saying Hail Marys. I started saying the prayer of our Lord, our Father. But in the middle of one of my Hail Marys, it got even worse. I was halfway through the prayer and my sister started to laugh in her sleep. So I was like, okay, Satan knows I'm praying. He thinks that it's not gonna work. He's laughing at me, trying to summon God. You know what? If she can summon Satan into the house, why can't I summon the baby Jesus? So as soon as I heard the giggles, I stopped, stared over into the darkness, expected to see her face at the top of the ladder next to me. So what did I do then? I didn't even use the ladder to get out of bed. I jumped out of bed for fear that the devil would grab my tiny little twig ankles. Ran to the light, turned it on. The room illuminated. Satan was nowhere to be seen. I trepidatiously moved over to my sister's bed and looked at her, expecting to see scars on her face and a crucifix in her hand, ready to reenact what had happened in the movie. But no, she was just fast asleep, just talking to herself. So I woke her up, I shook her gently, and she woke up. She was like, what? What are you doing? Why are you awake? My sister, of course, was only like 14 at the time. She wasn't that much older than me, but she was old enough to think that her 10-year-old brother was a little shit who just would not shut the fuck up and settle down at any moment of life. So I shook her, she woke up, and I asked, the first thing out of my mouth was, are you the devil? And she reacted with, no, shut up and go back to sleep. So I said, but I watched the movie and you said Ouija board summoned the devil and you did that, and in the movie the devil came. She just looked at me like I was some sort of freak with 10 heads. She rolled over, went back to sleep, told me to turn off the light, and that was it. I didn't get any clarification on whether or not the devil had entered her body or whether or not she was ready to kill me. I went over, turned off the light, walked back towards the bunk, sped up the ladder faster than anyone has climbed a ladder. I should have went to the Fire Academy Olympics at that point. And just lay back in bed, like dead center, so the hands couldn't come up over the bunk and grab me. And just start praying again. And eventually, I fell asleep. I must have, because I woke up the next morning and I was still alive and my sister was not in her bunk. Now, either she was never possessed by the devil or I died that night and everything I'm living right now is a lie and a simulation. I have never seen The Exorcist since. I think I saw the ending somewhere, but I have never watched the entire movie start to finish for fear that some sort of childhood trauma, PTSD, will kick in and I won't be able to sleep for a week. But all I know is that at some point in my childhood, I shared a night with Satan and my sister was possessed by the devil.